I know a lot of us, when we're assessing what size to choose for a pair of bottoms, whether it's a skirt or a pant, we find ourselves having a different size for the waist and a different one for the hips. And then comes all these questions: how do I blend this? How do I sort this pattern out so that everything makes sense? This is what we're going to see today. Two very practical examples so you can see how to tackle this next time you sew. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I have something very practical. It's a question I see a lot on social media. Sometimes there's a habit that we've picked up when we just started sewing that is sort of hard to let go of. Maybe it comes from a past of just buying clothes in shops. You get a size 12 or a size 20 or whatever size, because in shops they don't sell multi-sizes, right? You just buy one size. For some people that's no issue, but for a lot of people it can be an issue. Sometimes the waist size is larger than the hip size, or vice versa. Sometimes you just have a smaller waist and a larger hip, and then you end up with bottoms, skirts or pants that just don't fit properly. Well, when we're sewing, we don't need to do that. We can choose different sizes on the same pattern and blend the lines all together so that the garment we're sewing is actually custom made to us. We can blend the sizes to get a custom fit, and we can end up with garments that fit us properly, not like the ones that we tend to buy in the shops. Maybe for some of you it is a reason to start sewing, to get garments that fit you better. For me, it's not that much of an issue to buy pants or skirts because I tend to just be a straight size. But because every designer has a different blog, or they design for a different type of shape, sometimes I also need to blend sizes between my waist and my hip. So I have two examples for you. The first example is going to be an easier example, and then after seeing all the steps right there, then we're going to go off to another example. For both of these examples, we are talking about pants. We have a fitted waist and a semi-fitted hip, fairly fitted hip. Then the width of the leg at the bottom doesn't really matter because what we're blending is from the hip upwards. Both of these pants have a fly front zipper and a facing finish, so we don't have a waistband in this case for both of them. The first example is the upland trousers from Itch to Stitch. I'm going to show you the size chart here and what I was thinking about when I was planning my size and seeing what size to sew. Usually I will go first to the body measurements. I just circle there where my body is at the moment. When I made these, my size was a size 14 and my hips were a size 16. So in theory, I would need to blend sizes from a waist 14 to a 16 hip if I wanted everything to fit correctly. But then when you go down and look at the finished garment measurements, this is where you have much more information that will help you make up your mind what you want to do. Now, looking at the finished garment measurements, I realized that these pants don't have any ease at the waist. They're meant to be very snug at the waist, and I get that. Sometimes some fabrics stretch out, for example linen or others. As you wear the garment during the day, those fibers warm up and relax against your body, and then you end up with something a little looser. But I know I never want zero ease at my waist. No thank you very much. So I looked at the finished waist for the size 16, and I'm much happier than that. I'm much happier to have an inch of ease at my waist. So it turns out I don't need to blend sizes here, and that's just because I want more ease at the waist. Whenever I'm doing a new pattern, I have a little page in a notebook where I write notes and write everything down that I'm doing before I start sewing. So I would usually write there what size I need to sew, whether it's one size or multi-size. If I know that I'm going to blend sizes, I need to print out two sizes. I'll tick those sizes where I'm printing my PDF so that both of those sizes come out printed. I assemble my PDF pattern, then I have it all there. And this is when I start checking for the front and the back rise. I have to draw in the seam allowance everywhere at the waist and around the crotch curve. This is in the case that the pattern doesn't tell me what the front and the back rise is. But in this case, the upland trousers, it tells me. Now for this pattern, on the finished garment measurements, it also tells you what the front rise is and what the back rise is, all completed. And so that means I don't need to go ahead and measure my pattern, which is something that I'm always going to do. Regular steps that I would do for most patterns, I don't really need to do here. So I know exactly how much it is and that I don't need to make any changes to the pants. For my rise, for my size, it's all going to be okay. But I have filmed for you how I would do it, considering that these pants are not just a front and a back leg. On the front you have pockets, lanted opening pockets. That means that there's a pocket facing and a pocket bag that are all stacked on top of each other on that front leg, and then on the inside you're going to have a facing both for the front leg and the back leg. So if you have all those pieces that need to talk together and make sense in the end when you're going from one size to the other, you need to stack them up. So I'm going to show you in just a few minutes just a 2 or 3 minute clip how you can easily adjust the waist. Use this for something similar. It doesn't really need to be just the upline trousers. This is just an example where you have a facing, you have pockets. Maybe your example doesn't have a facing, has a waistband, but you still have pockets to deal with. So let's see how to do that. Super easy. These are the top of the pants, and I have 2 sizes printed here. You'll see 2 lines, an orange one which is size 14, and the one on the outer side is a 16. That's the one that I sewed. I wanted to show you how this is done, so I printed both sizes anyway. This is the front pocket facing, this is the slant, and you put this like that on top to match the side right there. You'll find the hip has a shape, and that goes all the way up to the top right there. On this side, you will see a little notch. Let's mark this orange notch here on this side so we can see it. So just place that on top. Then take your front pocket, and this area here is where you have the hip area that will sort of close this area that you have there. For the front pocket and the facing, let's match these notches that we have right there. So there is the orange notch, here's the orange notch. Let's just pin them there together. So you have these 2 notches matching from both the pocket pieces. You have here matching this shape right there. So just pin those together. Now put this along the top of the pant right there. Match it there on the side. You have an even space right there. And now just pin it all together. Now that you have both pocket pieces stacked on top of the front leg, the last one you need to stack on top is the facing. You will align this one there too. Now I'll just show you, in my case, if I want to do 14 to 16. So I'm going to blend up to here, the bottom of the pocket, around there. Place a ruler here, start on the 14 and slightly blend out to another size. Like that. When you cut this away, you'll be cutting through all the pocket pieces at the same time, and the facing and the pant, and that way all the pieces will match when you're trying to do this. On the back is even easier because you don't have pocket pieces on the side. You just have the back leg and the facing. So all you need to do here is put these 2 on top of each other, aligning everything on the side, choosing the spot of the full hip where you're going to blend out to there. And then just draw the curve like this going out. If you're doing it the opposite way and you're doing a smaller hip, then you would blend out to a larger waist size, same thing. But having these pieces stacked up means you're adjusting them both at the same time. And this is how you can adjust any pant that has other pieces on there, like facings, pockets, all those things. I already have a video on my channel all about the upland trousers from Each to Stitch. I really love them. Purple linen, beautiful. There's double welt pockets on the back. It's just a really classic pair of trousers that I've really enjoyed wearing. So if you haven't seen that one, go ahead and watch. I'm also going to extend this and say that the same method would work for a type of denim style skirt, or any skirt that has all these types of features, maybe a facing inside, pockets on the front, pockets on the back. You know, just pretend the crotch curve isn't there, but the way that you would blend the sizes would be exactly the same if this was a skirt as well, because you do find skirts with features that are very similar to these. It's just not a pant, it's a skirt. Now for the second example, I needed to do a bit more steps here, steps that I didn't need to do with the first example, but if you've already got the main idea, then we just build on it. The next example is using the Nellie joggers from Pattern Scout. These are a pair of trousers I've already made. I have not done the full review on them yet. That is coming next, but I decided to use the blending and all of these topics separately so that it's something that you can come back to. It's a bit of patience. You will see these finished trousers and all about them in the next episode. So these are a flat front, elasticated back, style, woven, same. Fly front. There's not enough ease at the waist, even though there's an elastic at the back for them to be pulled up. So that means that there's not much bulk at the back, but you still have that comfort and ease. You still need that fly front zipper to get in though. Facing finish inside as well. And for this one, looking at the size chart, you know, they're all different. Every designer uses a different one. I noted that Pattern Scout on the size chart has a 12-inch difference from the waist and the hips for most of the sizes, which would mean a pretty good hourglass to pear shape block. I'm not that curvy. I just have a 10-inch difference between my waist and my hips, which would be sort of standard for hourglass according to some definitions out there. I knew that I needed to blend sizes here. Just jotting little circles down here, I knew that I needed a size 18 waist and a 16 hip. That means my waist goes out a little bit and is not so curvy like the pattern has it be. This one is a little easier in the fact that there's a patch pocket there. and there's a facing inside. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to blend these ones from a smaller hip to a larger waist. Remember, if you need the opposite, just do the opposite. Now, knowing what sizes I need and that I do need to blend, I look at finished garment measurements. It does not tell me what the rise is for these pants. That means that I need to print out my pattern, print the two sizes so that I have it there and measure them. When I measure the front rise and the back rise, I know that I need to do some changes. Sometimes if you just see something more than once, you might just get that light bulb moment. So I'm just going to include that in here as well, how I'm going to adjust my rise here, front and the back. This is all personal fitting, of course. It would be different for you. And then after doing that, having my rise fixed, then I'm going to blend the sizes, and then after blending and doing all the changes, I also need to confirm this with a quick test garment. So let's see. This is my front leg pattern piece, and I have drawn in my seam allowances. Now for this particular pattern, it's really easy to measure your front rise and your back rise because there's no separate waistband to attach. This is going to be finished with facings in here. So it's really easy. Basically, when you discount the seam allowance from the top, which is 5/8, that is the exact height there that the pants are going to have. So it's really easy. So I've drawn my seam allowance here on the top on the waist area, 5/8 of an inch. There is a little notch mark there and a dot. This is where the zipper is going to be installed, but that's going to be the actual seam in the end. And then I've drawn 5/8 here, and then the inseam also there. I've done extensive measurements on my body, and I know that my front rise measures 12.5 inches. So when I measure here, discounting all the seam allowance and measuring on this seam allowance line right there, I get 14 inches, which makes me think that for the front at least, this is a bit too high for me. So if my front measures 12.5 inches, I would still want to have a bit of vertical ease for movement. So I would like my pants to be 13 inches, not 12.5, adding that half an inch. And what I have here is 14. So basically what I want to do is shorten the rise on the front by 1 inch. There is a line right here on the pattern. So I'm just going to turn my pant this way. Here where I'm going to cut, I'm also going to draw in a little bit of seam allowance there because I don't want to cut all the way to the edge. So I'm just going to cut over here up to the seam allowance line. And then from the seam allowance line, I'm going to cut into that so I can have a little hinge, pivot point right there. Here I'm going to measure 1 inch right there. And now all I'm going to do in the front is overlap. This is going to make my front rise 1 inch shorter. I am going to confirm these fitting adjustments with a muslin, so I can easily change this later if it's not exactly correct. One thing I need to do here is straighten this out. This red line is not exactly straight anymore. So that would be my new seam line for my zipper, not this other curved one that was like that. I also should extend this grain line higher so that I can place it correctly. That is my front done. The side seam hasn't changed. All that's changed is here in the center front right there. It's 1 inch shorter. I still have half an inch of vertical ease around this area. Here's the back leg. I've also drawn in the seam allowance here for the waist on the top and along the back crotch and a partial area here on the inseam. I know my back rise measures 17.5 inches. That's what I know from measuring my body and knowing exactly where I want the waist to be on my body. If I measure this right there, discounting seam allowances and measuring right on my red line, this measures exactly 17.5 inches, which is what my body measures. And again, I want to have a bit of vertical ease here, so I think I need to add at least half an inch to this, so that's 18 inches instead of 17.5. So this is where the shorten and lengthen line is on the pattern. Over here on the side seam, I'm going to draw a little bit of where the seam allowance would be so I can cut up to there. And cut from the seam allowance up to there also. And now this is where I'm just going to spread apart and add half an inch of length. It's not much, but I think it does make a difference. I don't want to feel like it's short and pulling at the back. So I'm just going to fill in the gap with paper. Here I'm just going to join these lines so that they make sense. My front also has no change at the side seam. So when I put these together, these are going to match at the side seams. All the changes were made here in the center front or the center back. Now I'm going to see about blending the sizes. For the front, we have these facing pieces, and I want to blend my sizes for the facing pieces as well because these are going to include part of the side seam. So this straight edge will go at the center front, so that's one, and this other edge is going to go there. So I'm going to put both facings together. There is a left and a right facing. I'm going to stack these all together right here, because that's where these facings are going to end up being, right there. What I've got here are two sizes, 16 and 18. I basically want the size 18 waist with the 16 hips. You can see the curve is quite pronounced. My body isn't that pronounced. So from here where you have the hip notch, so if I measure from here down, it's about 8 inches, and that is exactly the distance between my waist and my full hip. So this pattern is right for me, but the curve is too pronounced. So up here, I want to end up on this line while keeping the 18 here on the top. So I'm just gonna get this curved ruler. So here I'm at size 16, up here I'm at size 18. And I'm going to make really strong pen marks right here because I want to go through the facing layers as well. I should pin these so that they don't move. I'm checking if this patch pocket for the front is going to be affected because this starts much lower. This is where you put your hand in. And actually, if I put this right here, the pocket is going to start right where the hip is already at 16. So basically what I have to do with the pocket is cut size 16 here on the side because I don't need the size 18 to be there. So that is going to match exactly the size 16 I want at the full hip, and the fact that I've blended out at the waist isn't going to affect this area of the patch pocket there. So having all these 3 layers pinned together, both facings and the front leg, now I'm just going to trim. So I'm going to start from the bottom, but I'll just show you this area, cutting from 16, and then up here I'm going smoothly up to 18 at the waist on the top. And this is going to be my curve for my body, including the facings, and everything's going to match. I'll just go ahead and trim away all that size 18 all the way down that I'm not going to need anymore. I've just seen that the back doesn't have the notch that the front has on the side. I've got in my front piece, I can see the notch there. I've placed it along the edge here, and I'm just going to mark where it would be so that I can blend on the same curve. And I would actually like to keep the same curve here for the back leg. So I'll keep my front piece here handy. We also have a back waistband facing, and I've got both sizes here, 16 and 18. So I'm just going to stack that one on top of the back leg, aligning here on the side. And now I'm going to take my front leg and I'm going to copy the same curve. So on the front leg, I already had size 16, so I'm going to align it to the size 16 here. And then I'm going to just pivot this to meet size 18 there on the edge. And I'm going to copy the same curve I drew for my front. So now I'm just going to trim away there, and I know that these are going to match. They're going to have the same type of curve, the front and the back. For the crotch length, front and back, I always use the largest size I have. So I had 16 and 18 printed. The difference between them is minimal. It's like 1/8 of an inch. So that is what I use. Same as on the top here, you see 16 there and 18 on the top. I use the largest size for the waist and this. And the area where I blend is only at the side seam. Now I'm going to cut out my muslin from just random fabric woven, and I'm just going to check if these adjustments were correct. And then if I need to tweak anything, I will just tweak it on the pattern and then cut out my final fabric. This is my muslin. I didn't sew the facing because you don't really need to. What I did though was stay stitches so it wouldn't stretch out. Basically 5 fold 5/8 of an inch down. That is the finished height that I'll have here at the waist, which is fine. I've just done a simple zipper insertion, no zipper fly. You know, all you need to do is pull it up when you do a muslin. And I'm really happy with the fit. On the side, there's this panel here. You can't see it with the print, but it's right there, goes all the way down. And the fit at the back is really good. At the back, I have it gathered with a small elastic, just like the original would, so that gives a little bit of extra ease at the waist. Although it's not enough ease for you to be able to pull this up and down and for it to be a pull-up pant. That's why there is a zipper there. I really like that for comfort. So nice. I think the back is perfect. The leg is hanging straight. I don't see any strained drag lines or anything that I'm not happy with. I wanted to show you how they look like down at the bottom. I'm not going to be doing the cuff. I'm going to be doing a regular hem, and I think I need to add 1 inch of length to these, because this is the length I would like my pants to be, only I don't have a hem here. So I'll be adding 1 inch. There is a lower line around this area. That's where I'll add that extra length. I hope this is helpful. I realize that both my examples have a facing finish inside, which might be a little different. If your garment doesn't have a facing and has a waistband, just make sure that you're cutting the waistband according to the waist size that you want. Whether it's larger or smaller than your hip size, that won't change. Your waistband has to be your waist size. And then from the actual pant, from the legs, from that edge, the top edge, that's where you start blending out towards the hip or blending in if you need a smaller hip size. But the process would be the same. If you have pockets on there, stack them on. Make sure you're printing all the sizes that you need and that everything is right on top of each other. If there's notches there, make sure they all match. Pin them all together, cut them all out all at the same time. A curved ruler always helps. Sometimes I do it freehand. It's just what you're most comfortable with. And always check with a quick test garment. I have special fabric that I buy for that. It's zero stretch. It's just gonna show me anything that's wrong. I will never sew the actual fly front. I just whip on a centered zipper insertion. I don't actually sew the facing on. I stay stitch the top and I make sure that that's not gonna stretch out. And it can be a really fast process, and then you can go ahead and have fun with your nice fabric. Next episode you'll see all about the Nellie joggers from Pattern Scout. I think it's a really great pattern, and I have one that's in a color I know it's going to be a staple I'm going to wear so much. See you soon.